Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council held at 6:32 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. Kisukukit. We acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukanamakas, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat, and we recognize that we live and work in their vast lands. The Kanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Tanaha-speaking people of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. I will call the meeting to order and ask for a mover and a seconder approval of the agenda and any late items. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And now we have a number of meeting minutes to approve. So I'll ask for adoption of the minutes of the previous council meeting. And the resolution is that the November 28th, 2023 and January 9th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes and November 21st, 2023 and January 16th, 2024 special council meeting minutes be adopted. Moved by Councillor Audia Kelly, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation and invite members of the public, either present or online, who wish to attend or comment who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit, and a speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. And so I'll ask folks in the gallery if they wish to speak, please approach the podium and provide us your name. And you have 3 minutes.
My name is Michael Wolf. I don't know if I need. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not entirely sure how this works, and I don't know if my speech follows the what you stated, the exemptions, but it's in regards to 1500 Fifth Avenue, also known as a portion of Prentice Park.
That's perfectly appropriate.
That's it. Okay. Good evening. My name is Michael Bull, and I'm a resident of the city of Fernie. I've been a teacher here for the last 10 years, as some of you may know. I've also worked at Big Bang Bagels, movie theater. I've hosted trivia. I volunteer as a trustee at the Fernie Heritage Library. To put short, I am a member of this community, and tonight I am taking the time to speak on behalf of the couple of hundred or so people that descend every spring at Cervello and Hospital Field each spring to play softball. I've been playing in this league for 12 years. I've been playing softball my whole life. For me, there are very few things as joyful, uplifting, transcendent as a ball game on a summer night. The crack of the bat, the cheer of the crowd, the beers, the buddies, the grass, the play at the plate, bases loaded, tie game, swing and a miss. That's usually happens to me. Nothing beats it. Nothing's better. We deserve our space. We really, really do. And regardless of whether you choose to vote to put a fire hall there or not, it is absolutely our space. The airport field is absolutely terrible. There's no dirt. Mosquitoes descend nightly. It's out of town. The location is terrible. The list goes on and on. But I'm not here to trash the airport. I'm not even telling you how to vote. I'm telling you that we deserve that space. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Is there anyone else in the gallery who'd like to speak? Please, if you can provide us your name.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Rose. I am also a part of the Slow Pitch League. I am also one of the optometrists in town and own Rocky Mountain Optometry. I just wanted to kind of give you a couple of heads ups and try to help sway the vote a little bit, although I'm not telling you how to vote, but I did grow up in this town. I did grow up in the Valley. And currently there are 16 teams with approximately 20 people on each team. So 320 players that play slow pitch every year from May until the end of July. I do know, talking to the organizer, that there's at least 4 other teams that want to play, but we just currently do not have the space. So getting rid of Prentice and Cervello and putting us down into the airport sounds okay. But I do know, growing up here, that those fields have flooded multiple times, and through the entire season, we have not been able to use them. I do know that the field we do use through tournaments, which takes a lot of preparation for. I do also know someone who works for the city and has tried to get those fields up to standard for the league and are struggling to find the red dirt that makes the infield. So how is that going to then follow through if we are to move down there? Further on top of that, we do know that that's designed for the Little League. The Little League. And I know that there hasn't been one in the last few years, but all it's going to take is for one of the parents to step up and say that we want to start that again. And then where do we go? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Is there anyone else in the gallery who'd like to speak? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone online who wishes to address council. Okay. Okay. Or provide his name. Is he there? Oh, there he is. Dan, we can see you now online. Your mic is muted. And before you speak, if you could provide your full name. Still muted.
Sorry, my name is Donald Douglas Cox.
Thank you. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, folks, for making this available. I'm not in the community, or I would be there, of course, attending online. As you know, Your Worship, I have spoke with many of you individually to discuss my pleasure or displeasure of not having the Red Apple site rejuvenated as an opportunity to review for the fire hall site. I've expressed to each of you some concern over the perfect report or the report of the your I forget what it's called, your consultant over space issues and those kinds of things. I certainly have been in touch with each of your committee members who make recommendations, and I in fact was rejected as a committee member, which I didn't quite understand why I was not eligible to sit on that committee. But a couple of quick points, and I will not run over my time, Your Worship. The Red Apple site should be reconsidered as an opportunity to review the site, and the opportunity that suggests that from staff again that this review must be completed and the City Hall must move forward by 2026 is simply a misnomer that was decided by perhaps your administrator and your consultant, because the current Taj Mahal, as I call it, of Public Works certainly controls and houses the City of Fernie now Fire Department. And I know it's not perfect, but it certainly would do for another couple of years while we review the Red Apple site, both from a size and an access to the highway. MOT, a bunch of reasons that staff has provided that suggest it cannot be usable. Really, that's all, Your Worship. I encourage you all to vote at least to have a review and turn down the current site while you do have that review. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Is there anyone else online? No, seeing none. We will move on. Brings us to item 11, the agreement with the RDK municipal participation in the planning services. A report from Director McConnell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will share my screen now. Thank you. So tonight I'm presenting a report with respect to an agreement with the Regional District of East Kootenay regarding the Electoral Area Planning Municipal Participation Agreement. This municipal participation agreement expired at the end of 2023, and it's up for renewal. So it's now appropriate for us to review that and to consider entering into new agreement. The agreement is directed under Part 14 of the Local Government Act. Specifically, that part is subtitled Planning and Land Use Management. The regional district provides the planning services much like we do through their Planning and Development Services Committee, which is providing services to the unincorporated areas of the RD, which includes preparation and administration of the official community plans and their zoning bylaws, as well as processing development applications, zoning amendments, variances, and development permits and subdivision reviews like we do. In order for the city of Fernie to participate in that planning committee, we have to enter into this agreement. So it enables the city to have our director, who's currently the mayor, but there's an alternate as well, delegated to hear matters in a public hearing for areas adjacent to Fernie, as well as other regions of the municipality that might be delegated occasionally for those. Many OCPs of the regional district around the Elk Valley are in fact dated and up for renewal, much like ours is. And these ones include the Elk Valley OCP, the Island Lake OCP, and Fernie Alpine Resort OCP. So there's a bit of good timing for us as well. And I've spoken to Director Lennox with respect to this. There's opportunity for our planning department to work collaboratively towards consistency with their OCP and our OCP as they advance their updates and we advance our updates. So there's an opportunity to work together towards having more consistent planning purposes, as well as by taking full advantage of the relationship opportunity presented by this agreement. We not only advance that goal of consistency, but again, we ensure that we have a member of our community on their planning services committee. So with that, the recommendation is in the last slide and as well as in the materials, and I will stop the share. And myself and Director Lennox are both available for questions, but I think I'll go back to my seat if that's okay.
Questions from council? Councilor Ramirez.
Thanks, Your Worship. I have got a question for Mr. McConnell. What happens if we don't approve this?
If we don't do this, well, then we're not at the table for a lot of these scenarios, right? So as they advance their OCP and they advance zoning amendments around the city of Fernie, our director is not sitting at the planning committee and not in those public hearings and isn't able to be part of the decision-making process. We can still deliver our positions, but we're not in the decision-making process.
Further?
How many examples are there in the last term where Mayor Milligan or their predecessor sat on these?
Every RDK meeting, we participate in the regional planning committee. Further questions? Seeing none, I'll ask you to read the recommendation, Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation is that council authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the attached municipal participation agreement between the corporation of the city of Fernie and the regional district of East Kootenay with an annual requisition of $55,830 for the right to participate in planning services under Part 14, Planning and Land Use Management of the Local Government Act.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? So Councillor McIsaac, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Shoesmith, Councillor Nixon, myself. All those opposed? Councillor Ramadas and Councillor Audia Kelly. Thank you. Next is item 11.2, our fire hall site selection report from our CAO, Mr. Baranowski.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm merely presenting this report on behalf of the project team. I want to thank the project team, and particularly Miss Lisa Jansen, who have led a really significant technical analysis, highly consultative process through open houses and with stakeholders through the request for interest and request for proposal process over the past many months to get us to here. And to introduce our consultants from Arcadis, we have Samuel and Susanna, who will be presenting on behalf of the project. And then we are able to answer and respond to questions and support council in discussion and deliberation following a presentation. But they will handle presenting to council today. And they are joined.
Whenever you're ready, Samuel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you again. Happy New Year. We're happy to join you today for this very important discussion. My colleague Susanna will be also participating throughout the presentation. As the CEO Baranowski has indicated, we will be seeking your direction in this important project to proceed to the next phases of the process that we have undertaken with the project team. Next slide, please. You are familiar with most of the information that will be presented. There is some additional information that will be discussed, however, but we'll try to keep our presentation succinct and to the point and respect the time for discussion afterwards. Next slide, please. The project team has been integrated by a very dedicated staff that have accompanied us through the process, and we really have enough and a lot of very insightful discussions through the process that have guided us in this discussion and in this site selection exploration. Next slide, please. As we know, and has been mentioned before, we will be seeking your direction in order to move onward with the process. We acknowledge and we recognize that this is not an easy decision, as has been expressed by the citizens that have spoken on the public participation opportunity. Or we arrive at our recommendation not lightly. It has been a thorough analytical process based on a criteria that has been thoroughly discussed. Our recommendation is going to be for Site 2, which is a portion for 1500 Fifth Avenue, which is the Prentice Park location. We do emphasize that in order to move forward with the project and to be able to meet the intended timelines, we seek your recommendation and your decision on our recommendation today. Next slide, please. As we have been expressing throughout the process, the Fire and Emergency Services Department provides an essential service to the community. They're currently providing that service in a facility that is not suitable for them to maintain the service delivery requirements that are necessary for a community like Fernie and surroundings. The occupancy permit expires in 2026, and that is essentially the driver of the timeline from our understanding. But given the importance of the decision and of the project, it is an opportunity for the city of Fernie to create a generational investment that can ensure that whatever the fire hall and site location is decided upon, it can be used for a very long period of time to serve the community. Next slide, please. As we have explained previously, this is a four-stage process of the project. We are currently in the pre-planning phase. We've gone through all the process of background review, engagement with the community, engagement with the direct users of the potential facility, and we are now at the site selection decision. So we're hoping that tonight is the night that we get your direction to move forward. There's still a lot of work to be done if we want to meet the timeline to have an operational fire hall in 2026. Thus the importance of tonight's discussion. Next slide, please. Throughout the process, we have facilitated a thorough, open, and transparent discussion of the issue or of the project. We started back in July, as you know, discussing the needs and opportunities and requirements of the Fernie Fire and Emergency Service Department. We also talked multiple times with the other city business units. The next step that we took was to, in collaboration with the project team, issue a public call for volunteers for the community working group. And we had a very good response. And I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the participation of the community working group members that committed to a very insightful and an open discussion of the different alternatives that were being considered. We also issued an expression of interest for potential partnerships. 13 responses were received. 2 of them were specific for potential sites to be considered, which were also included in the pool of sites that were assessed. And finally, we took the discussion to the community. We had an open house back in October with very good attendance, 81 people signed in. And then we also facilitated the discussion through the online survey issued through Let's Talk Fernie with 460 responses. We briefed you thoroughly in November 28th last year about all the process and the details of the discussions that we received through this process and the technical analysis that led to our recommendation. Next slide, please. The site selection considerations, as you may recall, essentially followed a 3-step process. First and foremost, the 3 guiding questions: what is the most suitable site for an efficient operation of a fire hall? What sites would allow us to complete and meet the timeline intended for 2026? And additionally, and importantly as well, what site would allow for best community benefits and co-use opportunities looking into the future? Next, we applied a fundamental criteria that was arrived by continuous conversation with the project team based on the challenges that they faced from their current location. So that informed the assessment of all the city-owned sites plus the 2 sites that were formally proposed through the EOI in terms of identifying which would be able to meet that criteria. And last, for those sites that met the criteria for 1 and 2, we applied a technical site analysis that focused on the fire hall actual operations that could allow for the maintenance of response and travel time and distance and accesses, site area determination, test fitting, and site development considerations, and community impacts and co-use opportunities. Which sites would allow for future and co-uses, and that generational investment to last longer for the community of Fernie. Next slide. Through that process, we arrive at 2 potential sites, if you may recall. Site 1 being 902 2nd Avenue, which was discussed and explained to the community and at the open house, and was thoroughly analyzed in the November session. And Site 2 portion of 1500 Fifth Avenue, the Prentice Park location. These two sites continue to be assessed, and through the process and discussions and everything that led to a recommendation, we are then therefore advancing the recommendation for Site 2. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague Susana to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Suzanne, if you're speaking, we can't hear your presentation.
Is that better?
That is better.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm just going to retract quickly. I'm just going to start with a section on some follow-up items that we looked at post November 28th session. So these are the 3 follow-up items that were brought up since our last session. And we just wanted to provide an update on a couple of these items, as well as provide additional information and clarification, some of the inquiries that did come up since our last presentation. So the first being is that we wanted to provide a status update on the interior health site that was brought up during the last session. And then the second item, I think council requested this information at the end of the last session, and that's the utilization of the current Prentice Park ball diamonds. And then finally, it's a bit of a 3-parter for this item, is the clarification of why a 1.5 acre site. And the sub context of that is also a couple items with regards to something that was already mentioned today already, is the Red Apple site and why it was eliminated. And we also wanted to show a couple of smaller sites that were also brought up throughout the process and how they are not comparable to the Fernie project at hand here. So the first item, as some of you may recall, it was a 3rd site introduced during the November 28th council meeting. This was the interior health site adjacent to the hospital. The project team was mandated at that time to further study the site to see if it was viable. And during preliminary exploratory conversations, we were informed that interior health representatives confirmed that their project timelines did not necessarily align with the fire department's project schedule. Therefore, their project engagement timeline would significantly push this project's deadline past 2026. And as such, it no longer met one of the fundamental schedule criteria for the project. And then further to that, no further reviews were undertaken, and the site is no longer in consideration. The second item, follow-up item, is utilization information of the Prentice Park ball diamonds. So the information on the screen right now is provided by the city of Fernie, and it shows utilization for adult use only. So the first set of stats that we received was at Prentice Park with the 2 fields. We were informed that the bookings for the 2 fields typically occurred between Monday and Thursday evenings. And there were typically no bookings on Friday or on the weekends, except for a year-end tournament, a 1.5-day year-end tournament. For additional information purposes, the city also provided the ball diamond utilization at James White Park, where there is also 2 baseball fields. The smaller diamond, as mentioned before, is not suitable for adult ball, and the larger diamond, apparently there are no bookings except for a year-end tournament as well. It should be noted that if minor ball would start up again, it would displace the adult ball diamond there as well. So the city had also provided the following summary of potential options to address the loss of use of Cervelo Field for a new fire hall site. So it should be noted that these preliminary options have not been reviewed in detail or budgeted yet. They are suggestions based on the current utilization trends of what the city sees. So in summary, at Prentice Park, based on the current bookings, it appears that there's a underutilized times, mainly from Friday and the weekends. And a possible solution might be more frequent scheduling on these days, and that may increase available use time. Another suggestion was that additional lighting can be added to Prentice Park to extend play hours later into the evening so that more games can be booked more frequently in one day. And then from an alternative site point of view at James White Park, the option of booking the larger ball diamond there, which also seems to be underused at the moment. However, the city does recognize that the washroom facilities are better at Prentice Park, and there, as noted before, there are flood risks at the James White Park diamonds. So again, these items would have to be further reviewed, further viability. Finally, another suggestion was that ball use in general can be investigated for a long-term plan at additional field developments at the Coal Creek landfill site. The third item that I'll spend a little bit more time on is an inquiry that we received by many parties is, why does the new fire hall site need to be at least 1.5 acres? So we've received a lot of feedback on this, and we just wanted to provide some clarification and additional information to hopes to alleviate some of the concerns of why this number came to be. So firstly, we wanted to reiterate where the basic requirements come from. So the required site area is derived from this project's specific user group, which is the fire department, FFESD. The fire department's needs are specific to the operations for the city of Fernie and the surrounding areas where they have a mutual aid agreement. So we do have to stress that the program requirements are mainly from a very specific fire department. While we also apply industry standards and past project experience to help inform spatial requirements, is ultimately the specific service needs of the FFESD that defines the areas. On top of that fundamental need, we also have to make provisions for regulatory guidelines like bylaw setbacks, certain constraints on certain sites. So these can be different on every site, but we do have to make provisions for them upfront. So that's where the program areas are based on. And we also wanted to stress that the program requirements are not just for the fire hall building itself. The building itself is actually only takes up about a quarter of the site, as we will show in the next slide here. But what we wanted to stress is unhindered site access and maneuverability are essential to efficient delivery of emergency services. And it also provides a safe working environment for your firefighters. So we list a couple items here, and these are just a summary of what we've indicated before. Spaces required in front and behind of apparatus bays for queuing and safe access to and from the street. With a crew of 10 career and up to 35 auxiliary firefighters available, on-site parking is essential to meet their level of service as volunteer firefighters save a lot of time when not having to search for parking spaces along the street when responding to a call. In addition to that, some non-disruptive on-site outdoor training, for example, they're non-burning facilities, are required for firefighters to maintain their professional competency to be able to perform their job. So on-site training facilities allow firefighters to remain in the community versus having to travel to other jurisdictions to train. So it means that there will be less gaps in the emergency services to the community. And above and beyond that as well, there's site servicing and amenity requirements, things that are mandatory, like generators and trash bins and all that stuff that make any building work. And finally, future growth and expansion needs to be accounted for. And this is not just the building itself, it is also the site, because as we mentioned before, truck maneuverability and turning, more trucks you have on site means more spaces required on the site itself and not just in the building. So on this side, here is a breakdown of where we got to the 1.5 acres. And then again, we have to stress that the 1.5 acres is just for fire department use. It does not take into account any co-use requirements. And then in interest of time, I will not go through everything in detail again, because this chart is in our report as well. As you can see from the diagram on the right, the fire hall building itself only takes up about 23% of the 1.5 acre site requirement. Almost half of the size requirement comes from the site access and parking, like we mentioned before. We understand that visually this area will look mostly like open asphalt spaces, but it is much needed space to allow for safe maneuverability of large fire trucks and for firefighting personnel to access the fire hall. So to give an example, if fire trucks were able to do all their vehicle maneuvering within their own site, they will not have to take up space on the public street to back into their bays. This deters traffic delays along the street and increases public safety as well. So in terms of the overall breakdown, again, this is in more detail in the report and from our last presentation as well. And we also wanted to bring back this slide as well, where we compare the Fernie site area requirement that we just went through to other similar fire stations in communities of similar size or within a similar alpine region like Fernie. As you can see, these fire hall sites range between about 1.3 to 3.6 acres. Every fire department has their own specific needs, and those drive their own program requirements. So that's why you see the range. And again, this goes back to how we developed the 1.5 acre requirement. We based it on the City of Fernie Fire Department's specific needs. So for example, some of the bigger sites address on-site training requirements because they are in a remote area and cannot readily go to other training centers. Other sites which are smaller because the community may have multiple fire stations. But it also shows that in comparison, that the minimum 1.5 acre site required for Fernie is actually within this industry standard range. And moving on to one of the other questions that we received was why was the site adjacent to the Red Apple eliminated? So a secondary inquiry related to the site size, we know there has been a lot of conversation about this adjacent site to the Red Apple. So we just wanted to spend some time here today to follow up on some of those inquiries and provide what we had assessed on this site as well. So we wanted to clarify that although the site was formally offered during the request period, it did not meet one of the fundamental criteria set forth at the beginning, and that is the site size itself. So we just wanted to graphically show here as well that, and to remind everyone that not the entire site was offered, just the north side of the site, which is mainly the parking area in the orange circle there. This area in the orange circle is 0.87 acres, and it does not meet the minimum prerequisite site requirements, the site size requirement outlined in the preliminary criteria. So during the fundamental criteria deduction process, this site and all other sites, to be fair, that were under 1.5 acres were deemed inadequate. A further review into the Red Apple site showed additional limiting considerations for this site, and they include the consideration of access. So direct and constant access to Highway 3 would require a highway use permit by the BC Ministry of Transportation. And a traffic impact study would have to demonstrate that there will be no interference with the safety and efficiency of the highway with the addition of a fire station driveway access onto the street. And further to that, upon all those studies, a new traffic signal or a traffic light may have to be introduced at this 12th Street intersection, which may also impact highway traffic patterns as well. So a lot of study will have to go into with provincial entities to determine if a fire driveway access would have a huge impact on the traffic patterns of Highway 3. In addition to access, the site is also flanked by power lines on the north and east boundaries. These would have to be considered in the site plan and design, particularly if whatever we're proposing or whatever the design might have to be, if it's more than 2 or more stories, having these power lines here would definitely have an impact on the design. There is the option of having these power lines removed or relocated, but that will impact the overall community grids, requiring additional authority reviews, design time, and potentially additional costs. And given the site of given the size of 0.87 acres, we feel that future growth opportunities on the site are limited. In the fact that our previous mandates, that it's not only that we're looking at the fire station itself, but we are also looking at potential community co-uses. Again, returning back to the operational considerations for the fire hall, there does not appear to be enough turning radius space for the drive-through bays that has been requested by the fire department. And preliminary studies on this site show that we will not be able to accommodate the 40 stalls required by the fire department as well. And finally, this site, although offered, is not a city-owned site. So there will be additional costs to procure the land and also additional time to undertake that procurement process as well. And in addition to the Red Apple site, we were approached with a couple other fire station past projects that was brought forth this was brought to our attention, and throughout the process, the questions were asked, well, these two communities have fire stations on smaller sites. Why did they work or not work? So we took a look at it, and the project team did talk to the user groups as well for these two particular fire stations that were brought forth. So upon review, it was determined that these fire stations are actually not meeting the needs of their respective fire departments. These two fire stations have very different program requirements in the Fernie Fire Department, and they are situated in somewhat different contexts as well. As previously mentioned, the spatial requirements are highly specific to each fire department. So for example, the Canmore Fire Station was brought to question, is actually decommissioned already. And the city, Canmore has already replaced it with a new fire station that was just completed last year. Their community studies show that for future growth, they would actually need 2 larger fire halls in the long term, and that their current fire hall is already on a site that is greater than 2.5 acres, and they're anticipating more growth. The other precedent that was brought to our attention was the Missoula Fire Station, and it is on a site that's similar in size to the Red Apple site, but however, unfortunately, is also not meeting the fire department's current needs in that community. Its context is a little bit different, as it is one of 5 fire halls in that community. And in conversations with their fire chief, they can only operate 1 engine and 1 regular truck out of this building. The modern day fire trucks are actually too big for the facility itself. And there are issues with lack of training and classroom spaces here. So it clearly shows that this undersized fire station has already met its capacity, outgrown its function, and it's roughly about halfway through its intended design life as a generational investment building, which are usually 50 years and plus. It being outgrown halfway through is somewhat problematic, and the authorities in that jurisdiction have noted that as well. So having provided the update on some of the questions and inquiries that came up after our last presentation, we just wanted to go back here moving forward and to provide a recap of the recommendation presented in our report. We don't take the recommendation lightly. We've talked to a lot of working groups and stakeholder groups and internal business unit representatives, and the recommendation considers the outcomes and considerations of the engagement process, but also a very technical analysis of the 2 finalist sites. So after the engagement process, we received these remarks from the community working group, the CWG, and also the City of Fernie internal business units. As you can see, both are in support of Site 2, which is the Prentice Park site, as the site for the future Fernie Fire Hall. On this slide, we provided some highlights from their rationales, but in detailed description of the recommendation can be provided in the report as well. So with the CWG, they reviewed all the information that we had. They reviewed the reports, and through discussions on their own as well through their working group, they have come to the conclusion that they are recommending Site 2 as noted. And we just provided some highlights from the rationale that they sent us. So they see these as the benefits of Site 2. It meets all the selection criteria set forth by the project team. And more importantly, it's not near any high risk or environmentally sensitive major traffic or heritage sites. Site history suggests it does not have any significant environmental or contamination issues. The site does offer room for expansion and shared co-use opportunities. And another item that they noted is that it is close to other emergency services like the hospital, RCMP, which would be a beneficial aspect of an emergency operations center. EOC is included in the design of the fire hall as well. And from the city's internal business units point of view, they provided some rationale and reasoning for supporting Site 2 as their top choice for the location of the new fire hall. They felt that it prioritized long-term resource efficiency, both financial and use of land. They maximize the community benefit and co-use options. And they also support community building and access to the site. They promote functional efficiency for the FFESD. And it also ensures that the fire hall can be a generational investment and generational facility for quite some time to come. A technical site analysis was conducted on both of the finalist sites. So this is the more technical aspect. So the previous slide provided the engagement rationales and recommendations that we received. And this portion is the actual findings from our report. First and foremost, the site with the mandates that were given to us, first and foremost, the site had to address operational requirements for a new fire hall. So that was the main driving factor of how we test fitted it and analyzed both of the sites. Secondly, the site was examined for its potential and suitability for co-use programs that will provide an added benefit to the community. So these are the two driving guiding mandates that we used during the site analysis. As you might recall from my last presentation on November 20th, it was quite lengthy, so I'm going to condense it all into one slide. With these two mandates, we test fitted both sites, and they were evaluated against a set of technical analysis criteria. So again, the full details of those criteria were outlined in our previous presentation, can also be found in the report. Basically, our analysis showed that both sites meet the first mandate, and that means that both sites can accommodate a fire hall efficiently. However, it was Site 2 that offered more flexibility for future needs and the opportunity of community co-use. And you can see based on the scoring that we have, and again, this is just a summary of the scoring and a detailed scoring and weighted averages and how these numbers came to be are also in our report, and we went through it last time as well. So since our mandate were to determine suitability for a fire hall and opportunities for the community, and not just for a fire, but also for community co-uses, Site 2 became the recommendation because it scores significantly higher in the co-use category. So we just want to stress that both Site 1 and Site 2 can accommodate the fire hall, but Site 2 works better for the fire hall and the community well into the future as well, because it could address and be more flexible for that potential co-use. So this is a quick summary of the test fit for Site 2. So it also informed a lot of how we scored and graded each of the sites. So for the fire hall component, the site offers separate and unhindered access for the fire department. So the size of the site inherently allows for public and private driveways and entrances. In addition to that, the Eco Garden can also maintain its own entry as well as have a dedicated organized parking area as well that's adjacent to it. The site is large enough for fire trucks to maneuver and access the fire station safely. So this is one of the main points that we made during the 1.5 acre clarification. So the back lot area provides a lot of flexibility for on-site non-disruptive training, as well as additional storage and area for future growth. So having a larger area for future growth, it allows the community and it also allows the fire department to have different options for growth. So for example, in talking with the fire chief previously, growth may not mean necessarily adding to the fire station at first. It may be able having space to put up a carport or a tent on the site to house a apparatus bay that they may be looking at acquiring. So it provides a lot of different varying levels of expansion options as well with that space. So in terms of that, the back lot is a very appealing component of this site because it does allow for a lot of flexibility. As for the community co-use component, this site allows for the community use to have its own driveway access as well. It maintains that. And there's also enough room to organize a parking area that can serve all the recreational uses in this area. And above and beyond that, it also provides a structured access and parking for nearby schools for drop-off and pickup, as that is one common theme we did hear during the open house is this area can get a little chaotic at pickup and drop-off times. This provides an opportunity to help structure that and organize that traffic a little bit better. And finally, there is still enough area to introduce potential multifunctional community or recreational and amenity spaces that can also support the remaining baseball diamond and the existing recreational field in the area. So in general, these are the highlights from our test fit, and a lot of these items factored into the weighting and scoring of Site 2. So our recommendation basically is looking at how it meets the requirements. And in general, this larger sites allows the better maneuverability and access for the fire department operations, and it is more flexible for expansion and future co-use opportunities and projects. So first and foremost, it does meet all standard NFPA and FUS response requirements, shorter distance to Highway 3 than Site 1. There are less constraints on this site. For example, on Site 1, the 902 site, there is a 30-meter setback in response to the adjacent railway lines. And as per the test fit, it provides a lot of flexibility as well. So one thing that we did not touch upon in the test fit slide was that this site also allows for phasing flexibility, meaning that any future projects or co-use projects, because the site is bigger, those projects can be developed independently as standalone projects. So any future projects will not impact fire hall operations. So the fire hall can maintain its aggressive schedule while the co-use components and projects can be run in parallel or even after, because they may have a longer timeline in talking to different communities and looking at different funding scenarios to make that co-use component happen. So Site 2 allows for that flexibility. And finally, also, we do know that that there is no known site contamination issues with Site 2, but some further preliminary investigatory assessments may need to be done. But from our desktop review, it does not appear that Site 2 has contamination issues. So when we looked at why Site 2, we also looked at, when compared to Site 2, what were some of the limitations of Site 1, so the 902 site. So it basically came down to 3 items. The first is there are uncertainties with the site in terms of schedule that may pose a risk to the overall fire department schedule. Our background research showed that there is a very high probability that the site is contaminated and may require remediation. So this adds potential costs and delays to the overall schedule. The second item is that when compared to Site 2, it is less flexible due to the constraints it has. So as I mentioned, the 30-meter setback limits buildable area and constricts building configuration and orientation options as well. And then finally, there is the potential hazard of exposing an emergency facility to train derailments because of its inherent location next to the adjacent railway lines. So all of these points, when we're looking at 902 when compared to the Prentice site, it kind of pushes Site 2 to the forefront based on the criteria that we were looking at. So should Site 2 be chosen, the next steps would be, again, we're just recapping some of the information we had before. Initial planning policy amendment processes need to be initiated. So the OCP, zoning, and right to reverter will all need to be amended to allow for a fire hall development on the site. And then secondly, engagement with park users to determine possible solutions for the displaced baseball diamond. This task may have a longer timeline than the fire department schedule, but it can be carried out in parallel as a larger study with the city to address the current needs and craft future recreational needs as well. And furthermore, we need to start to engage with potential co-use and community groups, some that were even approached during the EOI process. With the selected sites, these conversations can be furthered and will influence concept design. So additional conversations with council is needed along with capital funding scenarios that will need to be developed and reviewed. Again, as we mentioned, fortunately, the site is large enough to allow this consultation to occur on an independent timeline from the fire hall project if need be. And then finally, after a concept design and preliminary project cost is determined, a referendum consultant should be retained to help carry out the referendum process to secure funding for the project. And I'm just going to go through this slide really quickly. So in addition to those items, there's a series of site discovery work that is required prior to site development, and that needs to be considered and addressed. I believe council is already privy to these numbers already. Again, this is a high-level estimate of some of the reports and investigatory studies that will need to be done on Site 2. And we should note that if Site 1 is chosen over Site 2, the site discovery exercise will also have to happen as well, maybe in a different manner, but overall it's pretty much the same. So this is just to provide a summary recap of the studies and investigations required. But it's once the project gets beyond that, then these can be actually further completed. Finally, we just wanted to provide a final snapshot of where we are in this process. Samuel already gave a heads up to where we at. So today we are reporting back to council, and should a site be selected, we will commence concept design, project costing, and forming a funding strategy in the coming months, which will accumulate into a final pre-planning report in May. we do need to advise that final concept design and project cost estimating can't proceed effectively without a chosen site. So we really look forward to being able to move forward with this project, but we do understand that a decision cannot be made lightly. So with that, I just want to say that it has been a very engaging process for us so far, and we just wanted to acknowledge that it was a really, really great experience working with the project team and engaging with the community of Fernie. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Michael for any closing remarks, and then we can field questions after that.
Thank you, Susanna. I don't have any closing remarks beyond what the project team and Arcadis has presented.
Thank you, Susanna and Samuel, for that recap and updated information. Very much appreciated. And I do very much appreciate your comment about it is not a decision to be taken lightly, and that is very much true for our community and council around the table. So we really do appreciate that. And I will, at this point, hand it over to council for questions or observations. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Susanna, can I ask, and I understand that we would really like to have drive-through bays. So I'm wondering what impact, if any, does drive-through bays have on the space required for maneuverability?
So with drive-through bays, there needs to be an apron in front and behind the apparatus bay. So the garage, so to speak, for all the fire trucks, and being able to turn in at the back and turn out at the front. That actually doesn't provide, but that requires a lot of site space to be able to do that, because an average fire truck has a turning radius of about 20 meters. So for it to maneuver and turn safely and effectively, there needs to be a wide aisle in front and behind the apparatus bays.
Further?
Yes, if you don't mind, Your Worship. Do we have any metrics on how many times we would require 40 parking stalls?
Yeah. I'd ask that you not applaud. It's very disruptive, and we'd like to have a fulsome discussion here. So please be respectful. I appreciate that.
So the 40 stalls was a requirement provided to us by the fire department. So that includes 10 career staff and 30 auxiliary firefighters. Unfortunately, I don't have the metrics on how often a full alarm, full fire department event would happen. But it's not, I believe it's not just for responding to calls, it's also for training when they have the whole team in for training. I'm not quite sure if Chief Morgan is on the call. He might be able to provide a little bit more insight on those metrics, but I don't have them at the moment, but I can go ask for it after this meeting if required.
Mr. Baranowski?
Through to council, we can look up the number of all calls. It's essentially every time we have an all call, because we don't rely on a 24/7 fully staffed department. We have paid on call or auxiliary firefighters. So people come from all points, east and west, to respond. And so those stalls are required so that they're not scramble parking through residential and commercial neighborhoods to get to the fire station to then respond to the emergency. But we'll get the number of all calls and then can confirm the number of training evenings and when they get together as a full crew between career and auxiliary firefighters for you in a moment.
Thank you. Other Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Curious, I can't remember if this was asked in a previous meeting or not, but when was the 30-meter setback instituted from the railways, from the railway line?
As I understand it, that's a permanent setback from the railway line.
Because looking at the pictures provided, all of the adjacent properties are built well within that 30-meter setback. So I'm just curious if that was a recent change or if those buildings had been built outside of that setback bylaw or what have you.
Yeah, I'd be curious if Susanna or Samuel can provide, or potentially Director Lennox could provide any input there. It strikes me that, not as an expert, that the post-disaster requirements of a fire hall would absolutely exclude it from the 30-meter exclusion zone, but I don't know if others can comment.
I know the 30-meter setback is part of the zoning requirements for this particular parcel of land. When it was applied, I am unsure. We can go back and check that as well. And Mayor Milligan, I appreciate that you understand the fire station is a post-disaster building. In developing a building within that setback would be somewhat problematic, as there are certain constraints to what can be in there, and also how things are built, which may hinder exactly, how everything is configured and what uses can be in that area. But from a post-disaster point of view, it would be beneficial not to have it in that area in the event of a potential rail car derailment.
Thank you, Susanna. Other questions or comments? Director Lennox, do you have a comment? Don't forget to turn the mic on. It's the first time I've said that to Director Lennox.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. When the property was sold by the owner, Heiko Socher, to the city, he required that there be a 30-meter setback. And that was established by a covenant at that time. And it was based on the Railway Association of Canada and FCM proximity guidelines report that stipulates a 30-meter setback for development adjacent to the railway. That was carried forward in the official community plan of 14. So there's some policies related to that in that document. And in terms of the Veneto apartments, the large part of those buildings was set back 30 meters. They were at an angle, so the angled section encroached somewhat within that 30 meters, but the first story space was not habitable. It was the laundromat areas, so that's why that was done in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lennox. It's very much appreciated. Other comments or questions from council? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just curious, for the benefit of everyone that is present or watching, if we can please review what it means to have a lower fire underwriter survey score for your community. And secondly, is there a difference between Site 1 and Site 2 for this FUS score?
I don't know, Chief Morgan, if you're able to comment.
Councilor, could you repeat the first question?
So thank you, Chief. So I'm just wondering if we can review what it means to have a lower fire underwriter survey score for your community, like what we discussed last week at the when we were purchasing the fire truck.
Yeah, so when the fire underwriters, they sort of give gradings to insurance companies to tell you what your community is as far as grading for fire protection. And the rating is for single family and two family dwellings is a rating of 1 to 5. And so if certain things like you haven't kept up with your hydrant inspections, or your trucks haven't been inspected properly if they come in an audit, you could drop that rating, say from a 2 to a 3 or a 3 to a 4. And then what that does is insurance companies look at the FUS rating and they say, what is the rating for Fernie proper or the city? And if they see that it's a 2, for example, then they go, okay, well, that's good. And so you get this certain rate. Obviously taking a lot of other variables into account as well, like how far you are from a hydrant, your home, what the composition is of your department, your training, your inspections, commercial inspections in town, your fire prevention with schools and education, So a lot of that is taken into account as well. But if, you know, at the end of the day, the two sites that we have on the table, I don't think the fuss rating would matter. Everything's within 8 kilometers and within response time for both spots for anywhere in the city limits.
But sorry, if I may, Chief Morgan, if we were audited today, tomorrow, given our current circumstance, the setup at Public Works with the, we'll call it a jury-rigged office and a jury-rigged bunker gear storage, that would almost certainly have an effect on our fuss rating, would it?
Yeah, if I may, Your Worship. Yes, it would definitely. First of all, they'd want to look at, first of all, your response times. So they'd want that automatically. Right now, since we've been at the new fire hall, our average time for a fire response call is over 12 minutes. And from our old location, we were just under 9 minutes. So that alone says a lot. Under NFPA, they like you to be within 10 minutes of a response for fire, first truck, from the time the alarm goes till the time you're on scene. So I would not like to see fuss come and inspect our location. We've already been stopped over 13 times. Code 3, which is lights and sirens for the railroad tracks, since we've been at the temporary location.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Other questions or observations? I have one, a technical question, because we have talked about this being a generational build. So we'll call it a 50-year build. And I think in the report, it references that timeline. And given that Fernie's population is projected to top 14,000 in 20 years, does the proposed site, I know we haven't done the full design, but does the proposed site potentially meet that 20-year horizon and beyond?
If I may, I'll start to try to answer that question.
Please, Susanna, thank you.
From a technical point of view, when we look at a fire station as a generational building, and most emergency service and community services buildings are, we look at 15% growth. And that's what we've added to our, that's including the 1.5 acre site. And that 15% usually can accommodate an extra bay, which is typically what the growth is anticipated for a generational fire station. For larger communities that have satellite, maybe I should backtrack and say that when a community decides whether one fire station is sufficient or a satellite, they look at how the community is growing. And it's also a function of the response area. So that's why in our report, we did all those polygons and whatnot. So in determining whether growth is within the one main fire station in terms of a community like Fernie, you also have to take into consideration of how far your community is growing. Is the density concentrated within the city of Fernie itself, or is it starting to urban spread out into more suburban areas? In which case, then it's not just a function of your population, it's also a function of where your population is growing. So if they're pushing the edges of the city, going further and further and out, even if this particular facility, whether it's on site 1 or on site 2, it will still serve the density growth within the area. If those boundaries start to widen, then that's the conversation for potentially a satellite fire station, because then your response time in areas and depending on road networks is a bigger study at that point.
Thank you, Susanna. And it strikes me those polygons would have to widen considerably, given that we already provide coverage for a large portion of Fernie Alpine.
And both sites we looked at, we tried to be as objective as possible. We applied the 15%. growth, and we can see that on each site, we can add a new one additional bay. So it's a drive-through bay, so you can actually technically have two vehicles, one in front of the other, for that expected growth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. I think my question might have been answered right at the very end, and that was you twigged a thought process in me with regards to thinking about the 20 to 50-year horizon, and it reminded me of the fact that we over the last number of years have acquired a fire truck that wouldn't fit in our previous fire hall, and fire trucks are getting larger, and I'm just wondering if there's the turning radius space of 20 meters on either side is going to be sufficient for fire trucks. Are they ever expanding in size? Are we going to, will they fit the fire hall and fit the turning radius under the current site planning? We expect new fire trucks to remain more or less static for the next 20 to 50 years. I don't know if anybody has a guesstimate about that or not.
Chief Morgan, and just an observation from our last meeting, but that is a 20-year fire truck, and it currently meets, it's only 8 inches longer than the model it's replacing. Chief
Yeah,
Morgan.
that's just the point, Your Worship.
Yeah.
Thank you to Councillor McIsaac. So for an example, our last fire truck was bought in '99. The dimensions are practically the same. The new fire truck that we've ordered is eight inches longer. The width is exactly the same, 100 inches. So the turning radius all depends on the axles, obviously axle to axle, and ours is the same as what we've got right now. So there definitely are trucks that are getting bigger, and pumpers are probably getting a little bigger. They're definitely bigger than they were in '95, like Missoula. But I can't say for sure if they're going to change a lot in the next 20, 30 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Can we just go back to touching on training? I know when we first discussed it, I thought the 1.5 acres wasn't going to be enough to have on-site training. So could we just clarify for people, Susanna, and could we compare the ability of sites 1 and 2 for training purposes?
Okay. When I say on-site training, and I think we were very careful to say it's non-destructive on-site training. So we're not talking about the big burn centers or the big burn buildings that are currently, I think, on the city operational site right now where the temporary fire station is. So, and maybe Chief Morgan can elaborate, but there's certain on-site training that can happen, whether it's for example, rappelling off the building or doing certain exercises with the fire trucks, be able to maneuver turns, other obstacle course CPAT training to test agility and to ensure firefighters maintain a certain level of fitness. This can all be done on site. And the more space you have, the more of these type of exercises they can do. So training is also there's outdoor training, there's also indoor training, and there's desktop review trainings with computers and whatnot. So in terms of site 1 and site 2, site 2 has a bigger backlog that may be able to accommodate more of the different time of training modules or activities that the firefighters might have to do. But maybe I'll let Chief Morgan elaborate. In comparison to site 1, the 30-meter setback can be used for that because unless there is some permanent structure there, but I don't think that any of the training apparatus or props would be permanent. So training to some degree can happen on 902, but it's limited, it's probably within that 30 meters because that's where we won't be building any of the actual structure of the building.
If I may, Your Worship. So there is quite a bit of training that should happen within your site. For example, where we are right now, we have the ability to throw hoses down, use ladders, do all that kind of stuff. Where I think the discussion was as far as doing all your training is that our live burns can't happen within that facility. And so right now, what we're doing is we're going to either Baines Lake or to Elkford to do that so that we can do that kind of training. We obviously can't do that training within town. So that is something that we'll have to look at. But as far as like having a hose tower for doing high angle rescue, you have a hose tower, you can do stairwells, you can do standpipes, you can do a lot of other stuff within your, and because the guys train, you know, a dedicated 2 hours of operational training a day, it's nice to be within your site because there's only 1 or 2 members on at a time. So if in the event, for example, you're off-site training with the pumper and you need the rescue, now you got to go back to the hall, go get the rescue, and then go for the call. So it just helps to have a facility where you can actually do some of this practical training. And then if an emergency happens, you can go from that site.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Baranowski.
Your worship, we've generated the answer to the question about all calls or when all those spaces. So Fernie Fire Emergency Services responds to approximately 400 calls a year. In 2023, there were 44 all calls. So that's when all career and paid on-call auxiliary staff would attend. Further, there are weekly training sessions that include everybody. So it's 44 that would be considered serious enough to have absolutely everybody need to get there quickly, and then weekly training sessions.
Thank you. Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is necessarily a question or an personal observation on this whole project. When we started this, the point of seeking out co-use agreements was to find other entities that might be able to help us with the fire hall build, if I'm not mistaken. However, it seems to me now that with site 2, the selection criteria is favoring that because co-uses can be done in a phased approach, separate, not joined with the building. We've got an extended timeline to find those co-uses for the site. That exact same rationale is being used against site 2, that it is going to extend the timeline to negotiate any land use agreement with the adjacent school property. And so I'm just curious, is it just me who's seeing an inconsistency here, or is there a different rationale that I'm just missing as to why the same criteria are seeming to be used for and against in the same instance?
Susanna, did you want to, I saw you took yourself off mute. Did you want to take a round of that?
Sure. Yeah, so we actually touch upon this in our report as well. Site 1, because it's a smaller site, any potential co-use after we apply all the requirements of a fire hall will have to be built up. So it will have to sit on top of the fire station itself. So in terms of that, again, we're trying to be very objective. We're not trying to pit one criteria against the other. Is the fact that site 1, when we did our test fit, any co-use will have to be on top of the fire station after the fire station has met its site requirements on that particular site. And in doing that, you have to address the co-use upfront when you're designing the fire station. So you got to determine who's going to be there. Even if you're doing just fit up space, you got to determine how much space you want to build and how tall you're going to go. And that affects the design of the fire station itself, because you have to quote unquote future proof for it. So whether it's on the site for parking, whether it's the structure and foundations to receive additional stories in the future, that all has to be done simultaneously with the fire station design itself. And on top of that, anything that gets built on top of the fire station will also have to address post-disaster requirements to some degree. So basically, we can't build something on top of a fire station. If it collapses, that it will affect the fire station as well. So that has additional time and consideration with that. So to some degree, you will have to address who's the co-user up front to be able to address the spaces that will be designed on top of the fire station. And we also looked at, and that's why we had two scenarios for site one to build on top and one that's orientated so that if the city decides to procure the land beside 902, how does that get expanded? But again, that has to be, there's time involved with that as well, right? An additional cost. So I don't know if that answers your question of how that criteria gets weighted against the both sides.
Further?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, basically site 2, we're looking at building a fire hall. And then because of the size of the landmass, we can potentially further develop the site as opposed to, and the fire hall will solely be paid for by the city and no co-use agreements will help fund that build. Whereas site 2, we might have to look upfront at building a second story and building the building to co-house those co-use users, and we might be able to get some funding for them for that co-use development side.
Potentially, yeah. I think for site 2 as well, because we show it in the test fit that they're separate because there's land, to be able to do that, it does not mean that we can't build something with the fire hall as well. It's just that with site 2, there is that opportunity to separate it if you should choose to do so.
Mr. Baranowski?
Thank you, Your Worship. To Council, I just wanted to provide one clarification. At the outset of the project, and it has been a while, we had two public expressions of interest. One for potential development partners who would come with land or funding or opportunities to co-develop a site, and one for potential co-users, being entities who have an interest in partnering with us in some way to develop the site. So there are, following this site selection, then an imperative for the project team to re-engage with the individuals who have potential to co-develop or co-use the site. Not many brought deep pockets to develop to post-disaster readiness. Many are amazing community groups who have genuine needs for space, but may not be able to find funding for a post-disaster ready office or set of offices or laboratory. But those are direct engagements that we'll continue because they came forward during one of our two expression of interest processes. The other two is about partners, and there is a partner specific to affordable housing who believes that they have the potential to unlock funding for post-disaster development, which we have seen in other sites, particularly in denser urban environments, but where housing or shelter is in some way mixed, and the funding bodies being a housing authority or the CMHC are comfortable with that because they know there's a safeguard of that investment in housing and an ongoing investment because of what's around it. There's an imperative for the community to maintain that facility.
And just for my own edification, sorry, Councillor Smith, I understood that the site 1 would likely be a 3rd story and beyond because we'd require the 2 stories to effectively house our fire department appropriately. Did I read that in the report, or am I?
Your Worship, that's my understanding, but I would look to Susanna Pont to respond formally.
Yeah, on site 1 through our test fit, we for the most effective use to have all the requirements from the fire department, it would be a 2-story fire station.
Thank you, Susanna. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Comment and a question. Thanks for that last question, Councillor Hamilton. For my part, looking at the co-use, unless somebody turns up with bags of cash and a real simple ask that's not going to complicate the lives of our firefighters or design teams, I feel we run the risk of increasing costs and complexity with that. So that's my piece on that. But I do have a question around the covenant that is on the Prentice Park. Sort of a question or comment. I mean, I feel as a town, we have a bad rap for not upholding agreements that we've made in the past. And I, for one, am not comfortable, even if we can easily move around this, I'm not comfortable doing so. So what sort of obstacle does that covenant present to us.
Who would like to take that question?
Mr. McConnell has been in direct contact with Shell regarding this, so likely.
We have been in direct contact with the contact at Shell Canada. They have indicated, we shared with them the project. We shared with them communication that we had with the Prentice family, who the saving of the Prentice name within the park. And we've confirmed to them the purpose of the amendment. We would not be working around that. We would be working directly with Shell and arranging a modification of the covenant. And Shell has indicated a willingness to have that communication, that discussion, of course, pending tonight's discussion of council. But essentially, they are expressing a willingness to engage with us to modify the covenant to enable the fire hall to be constructed if this location is selected.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Any other questions or observations from council? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Just one last comment, and then I'll be quiet for the rest of the evening, or unless required to speak.
I find that highly unlikely.
Yeah, you're right. I kind of on the lines of Councillor Shoesmith's question, I too have a real strong opposition, I guess, to pulling recreational land out of our community land base to build anything. It's recreational land. Once it's gone, it's gone. It's not going back to a recreational state in the future. And we've bandied about the term of a generational decision and thinking far into the future. And as this community develops and expands and grows, the opportunity to have a core park-like area in the center of our community is going to disappear. There really is never going to be another opportunity to build a land area that size with such easy access for everybody in the community. So for that reason, I feel, and that reason alone, I feel like I'm leaning one way or over the other.
I appreciate that observation. Councillor Adia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Councillor Hamilton. I share some of your concerns. And also for me, I know we talked about some options to replace the diamond, but we haven't costed it out. And that I think is a concern. We have a lot of expensive problems that we're going to face. So for me, I would like a more tangible plan for ball diamonds that has some dollar figures attached.
I appreciate that observation as well. And given that we're just entering into budget season, I think that's something we should very closely consider. But from my perspective, this has been a bit of an eye-opening process. I've learned a whole lot that I didn't know before. And I'll touch on a couple of those things. One is that the former fire hall was a temporary location when we moved our firefighters into it in the 80s. And that to me is shocking. We have kicked this, previous councils have kicked this thing down the road for far too long. Not least of all, because amongst other things, I've also learned firefighters in our community, professional firefighters, have a shorter lifespan than other comparable workers. So they sacrifice in a way that is unbelievably tangible. And yet we have been afraid to make a decision on their behalf. And I find that reprehensible. We're so fortunate as a city, we have 2 sites that we own that we can now make a decision to move on that meets their needs and meets the needs of the community for potentially 50 years. And as I said at the outset, and it's been said more than once, this is not a decision we would make lightly. And we would not forget those interested community groups that might be impacted by this. And we would work very closely with them to meet their needs in the future. And I expect that will cost us money, but we're not going to kick that down the road either. And I feel like we really need to make a decision on behalf of our Fernie firefighters. I feel like this is a 40-year, it's already been kicked down the road for almost 40 years. We can't kick it down the road any further. That would be unforgivable in my mind. And we've already seen how our community is going to grow, and we need to continue to meet the needs of our community. And we've also learned in the conversation about fire trucks that if we stall, we are going to pay a hidden tax as a community anyway. Somebody is going to come in and say our fire rating is now lower on both our residential sites and our commercial locations. So we're going to pay that one way or another. That could happen tomorrow. Again, like, I just feel like we can't delay a decision any longer. We owe it to our community. We owe it to our firefighters. We will work with those concerned community groups that we potentially displace here. I'm not presupposing a decision, but we are committed to this community, and that's why we're here. And we will work with you to ensure we meet your needs. It's going to cost money, and it will take time. But anything worth doing will take potentially more time than we anticipate. But we will not waver in that commitment. Councillor Amadas.
Thanks for that, Your Worship. I was about to talk about this when the motion was on the floor. Glad you brought this up. Based on 500 odd pages of information we've had in front of us, I've read it inside out through the weekend, and I've met dozens and dozens of people in the community the last 3 months. And even had a conversation with a couple of interested parties who were willing to develop on the highway. I've heard all the sides, for, against, not even proceed, different parties. And I acknowledge loss of a portion of the ballpark is a real loss. I acknowledge that. Highway is obviously the best choice for such a critical infrastructure. However, there are no available spaces. We are really like prisoners of our topography. We've got steep slopes, small valley. There's only limited amount of spaces. We need to bear that in mind. Fiscal discipline is very high on my list, right? I mean, as a councillor, I'll be the first to admit that any future fire hall, be it site 1 or site 2, will cost money. There's no two way about it. I'm not as concerned about the referendum as I am concerned about the actual fire hall price tag itself. So those are like all the, why I dislike Prentice Park at this point in time. But however, a decision not taken today is going to incur risk for today and tomorrow and for years and decades, like you articulated right there. My kid is 11 years old, and by the time this fire hall will be in, another 50 years of existence, she'll be my age. It's quite remarkable. It'll be 2060s sometime. So it is truly a multi-generational decision, and I'm taking this decision not very lightly either. I just don't want to go down in history as that councillor who took the easy way out. It's the more time we take, the bigger risk we take for the community. And like Chief Morgan mentioned in the previous ladder conversation, and as you have mentioned, the FUS folks will jack up our premiums. It is a hidden tax. And the one thing that I dislike more compared to paying more taxes is insurance. Like, I don't like to pay insurance, and I have no say about that either. So that hidden tax needs to be considered. The ball diamond capacity has. I appreciate some of the comments that came from our citizens here. I've heard it several times. It is a concern. But like you mentioned, we can find some alternatives. We are not putting shovel in the ground like tomorrow. There's still 3 more years ahead of us. And as council, we will do the course correction. If the price tag is too high, we might go back and make a better decision. If there is a loss of ball diamond facility, we can come up with alternatives. And I just believe in evidence-based decision making, right? And when I was looking at the staff report on the utilization of the ball diamond, let's be clear, it's been utilized roughly 60% of the time. We still have weekend time available, and we are not losing everything. We still have a portion of our ballpark still available to us. And I see every problem as an opportunity. We can go and rejuvenate those ball diamond. Again, it'll cost money. We'll have to balance it with other budgetary items, but there is a solution out there. We just have to be creative in the next couple of years. In terms of community working group, Your Worship, that model was done reasonably well. It was a learning experience, like you said. I think that model we can start utilizing in other critical infrastructure projects as well. Could it have been better? Absolutely. I feel like as a councillor, I did not have enough view of, who did we pick, what the criteria was. But I'm sure as we progress, we will continue to get better at that. But hopefully the folks who were on the CWG might have realized how it is to be a councillor. Being a councillor is all about trade-offs, and often it is probably the least bad decision that you could take is the best decision. And that's where we are here. Trade-offs, we don't have too many options. I would love to have a highway site. I would love to have a fire hall that is 0.5 acres, but those solutions don't exist, unfortunately. And like we have seen in the case of Mississauga and another community, they have walked back from those decisions. So I think we should be careful. We shouldn't be taking a decision out of haste here. And like you mentioned, 40 years is a long time. 1990s, we were in a temporary facility, and in 2023, we are still looking at not a great option that we have in front of us. I believe, quality decisions we can take and we can reverse if needed. And for all you know, all of us might be making the wrong decision here. I'm leaning towards Prentice Park, and I might be wrong here. But citizens have a voice. They can go to the referendum and vote us out. And through that process, what will happen is we will actually learn what the citizens actually want. And the cost is about $20,000. I think it is a small, reasonable sum of money to pay for such a important decision in front of us. On cost, we are not, like I said, Your Worship, we are not building it tomorrow. It's another 2 years ahead of us. We can course correct. This council is open. We are engaging with our citizens, and if we get feedback from the citizens about certain things, we can always make a better choice going forward. I just feel like we got to make a decision now and keep moving forward. We won't have a perfect decision, perfect solution, but we got to keep iterating from here on. Thanks.
Thank you for those observations, Councillor. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you.
Mr. Bornowski, sorry, Kyle.
My apologies, Councillor. I wanted to say thank you for those comments. I believe the project team addressed a huge volume of information to try and bring it to council. I do want to caution that while it is a small expense for a referendum, it is also probably a year delay because there's only 2 intakes in a year, and you're looking at about a 6-month process to prepare your bylaws, go through readings, go through certificates, work with the regional district, submit to the Municipal Finance Authority. So a failed referendum on a fire hall build is likely a year delay on the project.
Which puts a finer point to my thinking on working with those community groups that may be affected in this decision-making to ensure that we have a solution that suits them should we make that decision. Mr. Bornowski.
If I can, and my apologies, I'm not trying to be a wet blanket on the process, but I have to just be transparent with what those potential delays mean. And I should share again, I think Susanna did a good job of mentioning this, but we had a specific mandate as a project team and a community working group to assess technical requirements and look at sites and look at potential costs. And so you're receiving that, but you obviously do have a much broader and different set of lenses to apply to the decision, and we appreciate that.
Any other comments or observations? Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. So, 2018 comes along and you come into this chair and you are presented that we need a new fire hall, and you're given about 150 pages of information about how terrible the old fire hall was. And then a few years later, you discover that there's 7 different sites that have been chosen. One of them is Rotary Park as well, which was quite shocking to me, that we would tear down a park to put that in, but here we are. And now in 2024, in 2022, I was very much for 902. I thought that was the best spot for it. But then after being presented all this information by our community working group, by our internal business communities, by the fire underwriter survey, I'm leaning towards 1500 and Fifth Avenue. So I think that's the we have other places for ball diamonds. We can move red dirt around the community. It's a good spot for a fire hall. So I'll be voting for the staff recommendation tonight.
Councillor Hamilton, did you have another observation?
My observation was just a point of clarification to Councillor Ramadas's cost around the referendum being $20,000, but I think it's been addressed by yourself and Mr. Barnowski. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Shoesmith.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. To be clear, I don't think anybody at this table is in favor of kicking the can any further down the road than absolutely necessary by the process. I think we all acknowledge the need to upgrade our current situation. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity, I wasn't suggesting people around this table were. I'm just suggesting it's been kicked down the road long enough. Councillor Ade Kelly.
One final comment. Thanks, Your Worship. I do agree with Councillor Ramadas's observation. I don't want us to have a failed referendum. I really don't. I want the community to come out and make your voice heard, though. And I want to say that I am in favor of the fact that we do need a purpose-built facility on either site, or we need one.
Thank you. Councillor McIsaac. I'm going to make this the last comment, if you don't mind, and then I'll get Mr.
I
McConnell.
strategically timed it that way, Your Worship. I'll be relatively brief, Your Worship. A number of councillors have already hit on a bunch of the points that I would have made, and they've said it well, and I don't need to put too many coats of paint on that. I did want to say that when we began this process, much like Councillor Nixon, was fairly confident that 902 was the right selection location. It has taken quite a bit to sway me from there. And I feel like I am more or less swayed from there without, and I'll skip over a whole bunch of the discussions about baseball diamonds and all that stuff, not because they're not important, but because we've covered it and because I know we've all committed to making sure that that situation is ameliorated in the future. But what I do want to say is that one of the things that the previous council faced was the development of the Public Works building. And there was a fair amount of criticism about the scale of that building and what it ultimately eventually cost and so on. But a lot of the decision-making around that was much in the same consideration as we have here tonight, which was we're not building a building for a year. We're building a building for a growing community for 2 generations. Mm-hmm. Because that forward view was taken, we had the capacity to temporarily house the fire department because of that decision. I would caution that every time we've decided to, let's take the slightly easier path, let's take the slightly cheaper one, and so on, every time we've ultimately ended up paying more for it in the long term. Because of that, I do think that the technical information that's provided has shown that the Prentice Park location is better from a long-term perspective. It provides more options and more opportunities and so on. And yes, there will be some short-term adjustments for some of our user groups in the community, and I appreciate that. But it does provide us with that better long-term view, which is what we're all trying to make here tonight. So I just want, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McConnell, I'll ask you to read the recommendation, please.
Yes, Your Worship. The staff recommendation is that council select Site 2 being 1500 Fifth Avenue, also known as a portion of Prentice Park, as the future location for the replacement fire hall and direct staff to advance the next phases of pre-planning.
I have a mover. Councillor Ramadas, seconded by Councillor McIsaac. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? So myself, Councillor McIsaac, Councillor Ramadas, Councillor Nixon. All those opposed? Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Shoesmith, Councillor Audie Kelly. The resolution passes. And I wanted to say thank you to those who came out and spoke this evening. You were very impassioned. It was not lost on council how important this is to you, and we will commit to working with you to ensure your needs are met. So thank you for that. Other business. So this very quickly moves into my notice of motion, which I've discovered I can't actually make as a motion.
You could relinquish the chair to do that, but or you could ask if there's a mover and seconder for your motion.
Okay, so I think everyone by now is familiar with this notice of motion. I'll maybe ask Mr. McConnell to read the notice of motion.
Certainly. The motion is that the City of Fernie support the creation of and participate in a City of Fernie Wildlife Conflict Action Committee with a mandate to investigate and recommend to the city viable and proven solutions to reduce wildlife-human conflicts in the city, and that the Wildlife Conflict Action Committee be empowered to liaise with, among other bodies, the Regional Carnivore Coexistence Committee to create solutions to regional benefit.
Moved by Councillor Audie Kelly, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? Councillor Shoesmith.
Nothing more than that this is an excellent idea.
Thank you. I wish it were mine, but it's not. It's supporting the community in this. So any other comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I can't vote on it, can I?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Reports from council. How's everyone feeling? Why don't I start with Councillor Shoesmith?
All right. Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Well, I'd just like to thank everybody that approached me about the fire hall and spent their time listening to me talk about it or telling me about it. I appreciate that engagement. Other than that, it's just been -40 and everything's broken and it's been horrible. I've had to fix unbelievable amounts of terrible things in terrible places.
I'm sorry to hear that. Glad you're here this evening and looking quite dapper as well. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Do you have a country song about that? About everything getting broken? I just want to say happy birthday to Councillor Tracy Audie Kelly. Have a great day. That's all I have to report.
Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Councillor Nixon. Councillor Nixon's been doing like the heartstring thing the last couple of reports to council. And that's all I really have to report. I do want to say that I'm really grateful to the members of the community that have come out and spoken to us. I'm thankful that we have such an engaged community.
I 100% agree. And happy birthday. Youth Councillor Annis.
There we go. Happy birthday, of course. Other than that, I don't have anything to report.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Worship. Also, happy birthday. And I don't have much to report, but I'd like to echo Councillor Audie Kelly's comments with regards to the community. I felt like the level of engagement on this was superb. I couldn't have asked for it, both by the way, from the input that we received at the committee, but also the work that staff, the community working group, Arcadis, all put in order to solicit that information and prepare it all for us tonight. It's been a remarkable process so far. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciated that.
Thank you. I'd echo all those comments, so I won't say the same thing when it comes around. Councillor Ramirez.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy birthday, Tracy. The this has been 3 months of utter, like every day I was making different decisions in my head, and I'm kind of relieved that we have made a decision, and now it's for the citizens to decide whether they want to go ahead or not during the referendum. Just want to compliment CEO Bornowski on an excellent report, Your Worship. That memo was self-contained, very precise, and some of the ambiguities that I had in my own head over the last few months, they were all gone in one nice 4-page write-up. I feel like that was a gold standard for some of the agenda items that I've seen here, and also Chief Morgan's previous report on the ladder truck.
Right.
Just well done.
Thank you. I again would echo those observations. Councillor Hamilton.
Happy birthday, Councillor Adia Kelly. I'll also echo, it's been fantastic community engagement, and the work that staff and the consultant put in to get us all the information, all the detail has been great. I really hope that the community gets behind the decision and supports moving forward, because as has been mentioned many times, any delay now in the project is going to cost us, not just financially, but in all sorts of other social means to this community. The other things I wanted to report, I'm not sure if I've already reported them or not. Did we report at the committee the whole last week?
We don't do it.
We
at the
didn't.
committee
Yeah, I
level.
didn't think so. So perfect. I'm not repeating myself. So it obviously wasn't in the last week, but previously I sat in on a webinar session with Parliamentary Secretary Rolly Russell, where he discussed a draft biodiversity and ecosystem health framework. It was very enlightening, very informative. I unfortunately didn't bring my notebook to it, but all my notes are on a napkin, literally, at my desk. As well, I sat in on an AKBLG board meeting where, was it last week? I'm looking at Councillor Murkaza because he's also on the board. And we discussed a number of things, planning for the AKBLG conference coming up in April, which I hope everybody's able to attend, and should be a great agenda.
Thank you. I said I wouldn't, but I will thank again our community for all the fulsome engagement on this project. And I want to reiterate my thanks to the folks who came out this evening and were very impassioned and very clear about their desire to maintain access to sports fields in this community. And we as a community need to honor that, and we need to work with them. I appreciate very much Councillor Ramirez's observation is we have time to work with them in parallel to ensure that their needs continue to be met. So I think that's a very important consideration. So thank you. I've already wished you a happy birthday. I wanted to thank our Deputy Fire Chief, Scott Robinson, and Carrie Wall from Interior Health and the Fernie Heritage Library for their support in operating a warming center during that recent cold snap. And all those people in the community who either volunteered or came by and dropped off snacks. I ate an embarrassing number of homemade oatmeal chocolate chip cookies while I was here volunteering. And as with last year, we learned a lot. We didn't have any uptake on it, but I've said more than once, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I also wanted to float an idea with council, and I hope this doesn't take you too much by surprise, but and credit goes to Deputy Clerk Daniel, who suggested a council cafe. And so what I'm thinking is on Mondays, picking a table here at the senior center and advertising and making ourselves available to folks in the community. I'm thinking 1 o'clock on Mondays to have coffee and have folks around to have a conversation. So I'm just floating that out there. I don't expect any, I see some nods, but I don't expect any commitments. Or Councilor Ramirez, I know you'll be working. I'd have to check with the senior center whether that would work for them. I've talked about Monday with Courtney, and she said Monday would work. They're now open for lunch on Monday, and it would actually potentially drive more traffic. So she was delighted with the idea, but I could circle around and ask her. So every second Friday, yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, I'll take that forward. Thank you. Thanks for asking. And with that, Corporate Officer Daniel. I'm sorry, it is Corporate Officer Daniel. Yeah, that's right. Woohoo! And if there's no other business, we shall adjourn at 8:32. Thank you, everybody.